animal welfare. All I can say is that every time a big truck drives by with pigs inside of it, I do cry, and they look very sad.
Can you tell me what the Farm Bill is?
Nope. Farm Bill? Yeah, nope.
Animal welfare? Well, I assume that's when an animal family is below the poverty line and receives additional support from the government. So the Farm Bill is the man who has worked on the farm for 80 years.
Tell me, what do you know about Proposition 12 in California?
Oh, nothing.
I know nothing about that. I'm so sorry. Animal welfare, like how they take care of the animals. You know, agricultural and food things.
I don't know what the Farm Bill is.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the CAT Podcast. I'm your host, Sydney Schnorr, and today we are going to be talking to Madeline and Shay about alternative proteins. So, without further ado, I'll hand it over to them to tell us more.
Welcome to the Future Feasts, exploring alternative proteins with Madeline Friend, that's me,
and Shay Whaley. We are two agricultural communication students at Iowa State University. Today, we will be discussing alternative proteins alongside three industry professionals to get their opinions and research. So now we're going to give you guys a little bit of background into alternative proteins. So in today's world, consumers have so many options when it comes to choosing their protein sources. While there has been a rise in plant-based and cultivated meat, it is important to understand the nutritional difference between these protein sources. Real meat is a trusted natural source of high-quality protein and offers so many essential nutrients for your body. These nutrients are essential for maintaining your energy levels, immune function, and healthy muscle development. Plant-based meat often contains processed ingredients, artificial additives, and low levels of key nutrients, unlike what you would get from real meat. These might include a variety of plant sources, including grains, tubers, legumes, nuts, fruits, and vegetables. They have tried to mimic the taste of real meat, but these products are higher in sodium and preservatives. This is even getting big enough that restaurants are now starting to add plant-based protein options. Plant-based meat based on plant protein technology is a growing concern by global consumers in alleviating environmental pollution, cutting down resource consumption, and improving animal welfare. Cultivated or lab-grown meat is a newer technology, and this tries to replicate the structure of animal tissue. With this form of alternative protein being so new, they haven't been able to fully analyze the nutritional value of this. We know that it will never compare to the nutrients that real meat provides for you.
Thank you, Shay. Just to add a little bit more to that, with the rise in alternative protein sources, many stakeholders can be affected, such as farmers, consumers, policymakers, and even environmental activists and industry experts. Farmers need a sustainable income, support for transition to alternative farming, and markets. Consumers need access to diverse protein sources, health benefits, and affordability, while policymakers need data-driven policy development, regulatory frameworks for new proteins, and they need to support farmers because they are the backbone of America. Environmental activists need sustainable food systems, reduced greenhouse gas emission, and conservation of biodiversity, while industry experts need research funding, market analysis, and consumer education.
We would like to welcome our first guest, Brian Whaley, to share his knowledge and expertise from the Iowa Cattlemen's Association's perspective. So, Brian, can you explain a little bit about your background and your job?
So yeah, thank you, Shay. I work for the Iowa Cattlemen's Association as the CEO. We represent the cattle industry in Iowa and the producer members that are a part of our association. My background is really diverse for how I got to where I'm at. One of the things I think is important in life is that people know what their purpose is. And so my purpose, I feel like, has always been about education and helping others or coaching. And so all of the things that I've done over my career, I think, have been a part of that. So I started out actually as an educator and also did some coaching of some athletics, and then had an opportunity to jump into extension as a youth development specialist. Through that, developed and gained more leadership, stepped into some roles. Most recently, or the one I had before serving as CEO here at the Iowa Cattlemen Association, was as director of field operations for Iowa State University Extension and Outreach. And so I do have a diverse background, but always keeping education and coaching and serving others as a part of what I do.
I love that. As someone who wants to go into like the extension realm, I would love to chat with you later about that. But back to the podcast and the topic at hand. As the CEO of the Iowa Cattlemen's Association, how would you describe the organization's primary role in supporting Iowa's cattle industry and advocating for its producers?
Well, I think you hit the nail right on the head there at the end. Is the one word advocacy. So our mission really is around three pieces really. Number one, advocacy. Number two would be leadership. Number three is education. So in terms of advocacy, as I said, we are a member-based association or organization. So it's really our job to make sure that we're providing value in what we do and what we offer our member base. So we talk about that in terms of not only what's our value proposition and how we represent our members in all aspects, whether it's on a local county level, whether it's on a state level, dealing with state legislators, agencies, or even on the federal level. We play a part in having those conversations and representing our industry across the country. And so I have a team of staff who do a great job of doing that. And I think that's really the piece. We're their voice. We're here to serve them. We talk about that all the time as a staff, and what that's kind of our goal. The other two are very important. Obviously, number one, the leadership one is we do have a board of directors that govern our association, are my bosses actually, and I work with them very closely, especially our executive board. But really about leadership. How do we continue to develop the next generation of leaders for our association? How do we continue to grow our leadership in our county boards? Because we do have, in Iowa, we have 97 county affiliates that are affiliates of the Iowa Cattlemen's Association. So how do we continue to grow that leadership base? We offer a couple different opportunities, one at the youth level with the youth beef team opportunity. And then we also offer the Iowa Cattlemen's Leadership Program, which is a 1-year round program. They get to experience quite a bit of different things. And then on the education side, obviously, we do our best job to advocate for our producers, but there are times and things that rules, regulations, information needs to be dispersed or communicated to our membership base. And so we do that through a variety of different ways. We have 2 different newsletters. One's on a policy side, one's on just an update on ag issues. We have a magazine that we put out monthly. We also are doing some webinars recently. We've started doing those, as well as going out and doing visits and educational visits across the state with educational forums. We have an annual convention where we bring speakers in. So that's really the third piece of our mission that we focus on.
That's awesome. So our this episode is on alternative proteins. So how are you, as the Iowa Cattlemen's Association, supporting your producers with the rise in alternative proteins and advocating for them?
So alternative proteins, lab-grown meat, fake meat, whatever you want to call it, is obviously something that we are concerned about from the Iowa Cattlemen's Association and obviously the cattle industry. our industry produces what I feel like is one of the highest quality meat animal proteins that's out there. And there's lots of different research and, and educational resources that we have to prove that with studies and just the quality of that protein source. And so, obviously, we want to make sure that there's a demand for our product and our producers. And anytime you have competition, that potentially has the chance to lower demand. Now, we recognize not everybody's going to have the same philosophy and choice or taste buds as what we as some individuals have, and you're each open to your own opinion. But I think one of the challenges we have in today's society is um, we don't always get all the information and all the facts that are delivered. I recently listened to a podcast that talked about that and some of how um, the real research never ever gets delivered out to people because there's just maybe sometimes the dollar that people want to invest makes a difference. And so the real research on the nutritional value of protein, meat animal protein, doesn't always get talked about. And so we are very concerned about how this moves forward. There's a lot of money being invested in this on the lab grown side. Um, you know, for us, we just want to let people know that yeah, it's an option. You can choose that option if you want, but do your research, do your homework on how it's produced. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised on what actually goes into making that lab grown protein. And it's not as healthy for you as people may think it is in the long run if you truly look at all of the research. So we are definitely advocating against it. We've taken a stance on it at the national level. I know that's a priority for the National Cattlemen's Beef Association, which we are a state affiliate of. And on the state side, we've taken stances and introduced legislation here in the state of Iowa that does speak out, at least specifically on the labeling side of that bill, because we know that other states, Florida, Missouri, and others, some of their bills that they've put forward have been contested in courts, and we want to be in a spot where we feel that's not going to happen here with an Iowa law.
So you talked about how you guys are placing legislation or putting legislation into act. But on the flip side, is there any education that's going on within Iowa Cattlemen's Association that has to do with those alternative meat products?
I guess from an educational standpoint, obviously, it's one of those things where you have to know what the other industry is doing. So, in order to be able to speak out against it or to advocate against it or to make sure you're letting people know what it's really made of, you have to do your own research. You have to know what they're doing and how they're doing it. So we do the best we can at giving the information out in terms of educating them, not from a standpoint for it, but educating what that industry is doing and trying to see what they're doing next so we can be either alongside or ahead of them as we try to continue to push, obviously, beef for the main protein source that they get. And we here in Iowa in the association that I oversee or serve does not. I don't have the opportunity to use the beef checkoff dollars for on a consumer education side. We have another group, the Iowa Beef Industry Council, who utilizes all the checkoff dollars to help promote beef and to communicate the disclaimers, different things around lab grown protein. We're a little different than other states in how we are structured, but they work on the consumer side. And so we do work closely with them, getting data and information and educational resources as well to help tell our story even better.
Yeah, that totally makes sense.
Absolutely. So I want to touch back on the bill you guys passed in the Iowa legislature. It's called the Meat Integrity Bill. Could you just go into a little bit more detail about your guys' process and how and what that bill is about?
Well, that's an interesting bill. It really came about from a couple different avenues. Obviously, we had a senator in the state who is a cattle producer who was very concerned about this issue and came to us and said, "Hey, I want to potentially put some legislation in place to eliminate." Um, Originally, it was eliminate lab-grown protein to be even in Iowa, right? Produced in Iowa or anything like that. And we knew that necessarily wasn't going to go very far. The other avenue that this came from is we heard it from our producers. So we have meetings and get information from our producers all the time. And we actually had a producer meeting in Southeast Iowa where we actually had a mom stand up and say, "Hey, we want the cattlemen to take a stance on this lab-grown protein. We don't want it in our school lunch program for our kids. We don't think it's what we want our kids eating, and how can we educate people on what's really in that lab grown protein?" So that's really where the labeling position came. Is it's more of a stance of, we understand that everybody has their own choice, right? One of the greatest things that we have in our country is the opportunity to choose. um, we want to put, so we're hoping that they obviously choose our beef product. And so we want to put the best opportunity for us to continue to have that demand. I mean, obviously, Iowa's economy is based on our agriculture world, livestock being a significant portion of that. And so really really about that bill. The meat integrity bill was really exactly that, making sure that when people go to the grocery store, what is in that package is really what's in that package, and what was, you read what's the ingredients, right? If you're going to go get at a grocery store, let's say a ribeye steak, it's going to say meat, right? It's going to say beef, and that's probably the only thing that's going to be on that ingredient. Whereas lab-grown protein is going to have this long list of other things, and so we didn't want them to use the word meat for what is not really truly meat. How it's defined in the law is an animal protein, and that's what meat is truly an animal protein. And so that's really what that bill's about, is making sure that things are labeled correctly and people know what they're buying when they're buying it. We had tremendous support, obviously, all the way from our on the Senate side. From the House side was a little bit of a challenge because we had some amendments that were brought forward. Some other industry groups were concerned about preservatives and the ingredients that they use on very microscopic amounts, when they have to do preserved meats. That are packaged. But we took care of that. We worked with them. And our governor obviously was a very strong supporter of our agriculture in Iowa, and signed that into law very willingly. And so we were excited to have that done. That's a bill that the Iowa Cattlemen's Association took in partnership with lots of different things from our senator, and our hearing it from our producer members, and we took it all the way to the finish line. And when you have those successes and those wins, you got to celebrate them, because they don't happen very often in today's society.
Absolutely. That was a huge success. So we're kind of running out of time here a little bit, but I just kind of want to ask, what are your goals for the future? Are you working on any more legislation with the current rise in alternative proteins?
So from our perspective right now, I think in Iowa, we're very happy with where we're at right now. I mean, we're watching obviously what's happens in these other court cases and things across the country, and seeing how they play out. And then if there are opportunities for us to expand that bill, or to maybe move further, obviously we will. But right now, I think we're very content with where we're at on that process. Now, nationally and in the federal side, that's something I think we want to address, and we'll be a strong partner. Since we've already done it in Iowa, we'll be a strong partner for other associations across the country. I've already talked to Ohio. I've already talked to Colorado about this type of legislation going forward. So it's going to spread to other states, I believe, or I hope. And then obviously we'll work with NCBA and our congressional contingency, who is a strong supporter and believer in what we did here in Iowa, maybe to do something like that on the federal side. We're hopeful for that side as well. But moving forward, I think we're where we're at right now, and I think we're in a good place to make sure that legislation is not contested in a court.
That sounds
awesome.
really cool.
Yeah.
I would love to chat longer, but we are unfortunately almost out of time because we don't have the premium Zoom. But we appreciate you taking time out of your day to join us and talk about just the Iowa Cattlemen's perspective on alternative proteins and what you guys are doing to support and advocate for cattle producers in Iowa.
Yeah, no, thank you for the time. Anytime I can get to talk about the cattle industry, I love to do it. It's something that is a strong backbone of our country and the lifestyle that we want to share for generations to come. So thank you both, Shay and Madeline, for their time, and I appreciate it very much.
Thank you. Have a good day. So our next guest that we have here with us today is Erica Hung. Welcome in, Erica, and we appreciate you taking time out of your day to talk with us. So can you tell us a little bit about your background?
So, my name is Erica Hung. I also go by Erica Driscoll, which is a little confusing to most people, rightfully so. I am an attorney and partner in a law firm, and so I practice law under my main name, Erica Driscoll, but I am legally Erica Hung. I did change my name when I got married to my husband 15 plus years ago. I am originally from Iowa, so I'm originally from Creston, Iowa, born and raised there until I graduated from high school from Creston. From there, then I did go to the University of Iowa. Don't hold that against me. But I am a Hawkeye, but I do love the Cyclones as well. Where I received my undergraduate in journalism and political science. From there, I did a stint in AmeriCorps for a year. And then from AmeriCorps, I went into law school, received my Juris Doctorate, and then have been practicing law since then. I have married, 2 children, 2 boys, 10 and 12. And as I mentioned earlier, I've been married for about 15 plus years, 16.
Nice. Well, it's very nice to have you on.
Thank you.
So our podcast is a little bit about different perspectives on alternative proteins. So what made you become a vegetarian, and was there a certain moment that you knew you were going to become a vegetarian?
So my story is going to be probably very different from a lot of folks. I became a vegetarian when I was 12 years old. So that was, I'm going to show my age. That was 1992. So, and as I mentioned before, I was born and raised in Iowa. And back in 1992, becoming a vegetarian was not a thing of popular culture. In fact, it was, very little was known or understood, quite frankly, about it. And so there wasn't a lot of information or alternative sources of protein that were available at that time. I did not become a vegetarian to become healthy, or because I don't think it's appropriate, or because I believe in PETA. None of those reasons actually apply to me. I kind of joke about it now because it's stuck for so long. I've been a vegetarian longer than, I've not. But I had a little bit of an independent streak in me. And when you're from Iowa, you grow up in farm communities and, meat and potato families. And I call it my intellectual revolution of, kind of being stubborn with my parents. God bless, they tolerated me well. And kind of decided one day, came home and said, hey, I'm not going to eat meat anymore. It's just not going to be my thing. And so there wasn't really any ulterior motives. I didn't really have any thought process behind it other than I'll tell you, I wasn't a huge meat eater before. I didn't really like the texture. It wasn't really a flavor in which I enjoyed no matter what it was. I never ate fish, which is arguably meat as well. And so it was just one of those things where I thought I'm going to test the waters. I'm going to give my parents a few gray hairs. And I'm going to see how long I can make this last. And I'm just stubborn enough to have made it last for, 42 years now. And so it was a really difficult transition. My parents weren't quite sure what to do with that transition. They tried everything to convince me otherwise, grounded me, made me sit at the dinner table, refused to allow me to do social things, because back in that day, it was like, what are we going to do with you? And why is this thing? It wasn't a social norm, or at least popular culture as it is now. So that's the long-winded version of saying I had a stubborn streak in me and decided I wanted to give it a go, and it wasn't ever a source of food that I really gravitated towards anyway.
That's crazy.
It is
Like,
absolutely wild and so far from the norm of what most people are trying to accomplish when they stop eating meat.
I love it. So with all of that, and you said like you didn't really enjoy the texture, you didn't really enjoy it just as like a taste. So have you tried any of the alternative meats, and like how do you feel about them? What are your thoughts on those if you've tried them or haven't?
Yeah, so I have tried most of the alternative protein sources, and some of them I really enjoy, and some of them are kind of, it's hit or miss. Um, I will also tell you that part of the reason why I became a vegetarian is I'm a huge animal lover, and so there's a psyche part of it too. But it has nothing to do with my actual belief of whether people should eat meat or not. Both of my boys eat meat. My 12-year-old, it's like the only thing he will eat is meat, and my husband is very much a meat eater. And so it's not, it's not a sense of people shouldn't be eating meat. It's hey, I'm going to be a little bit out of the norm and not eat meat because I can't fathom
Yeah.
the thought of eating, the chicken that should be in my bed sleeping next to me. Like, it's weird. So, in 1992, there were not any, very few alternative protein sources. And once my parents realized that this was probably going to become my norm, I do give my mom credit. She sent me to a dietitian. But even then, they were like, hey, maybe have a spoonful of peanut butter and call it a day. Over time, things have really taken off with regards to alternative proteins, and I've tried them all. And nowadays, I mean, there's veggie burgers, there's veggie corn dogs, there's veggie chicken nuggets, there's veggie sausage. I really am fond of the veggie sausages. And I try them all, and I eat them regularly. And I actually really enjoy them. The texture does not bother me, but my husband will tell me that when he tries them, because I'm like, "Ooh, is that meat?" And he's like, "No." He will tell me that it is so far removed from reality of what meat actually tastes and the texture of that I've just completely lost touch with reality. But I do eat on a regular basis the alternative protein sources, because it is incredibly hard for me to get my protein intake without some more common resources like chicken and beef and pig. So I wish I could, if you wanted to know, the reality is I think that I would probably be a healthier version of myself if I could get past the psyche of not eating meat. But I just can't get there. I think I would be healthier if I actually ate meat. I'm appreciative of the fact that there are alternative sources, but they make me nervous in terms of whether they're really healthier for me. And then the additives and artificial ingredients that are included, are they actually causing me more harm than good? I don't know.
Yeah, that's very interesting to think about. It's definitely something that through this project we have Shay and I have been able to look at a little bit more, and it's so back and forth. No, there's never been a site that's like on the dot research shows this. So I totally understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know we kind of talked about a little bit on the nutritional value, but do you see like a nutritional value in the plant-based uh products that you have tried? Like,
I do. I mean, they're an easier source of getting protein with less caloric intake than, say, the peanut butters of the world. Um, and it's also a great alternative to dairy, which I do eat dairy. But it is a great alternative to dairy, but yet still getting a source of protein. I still think it's incredibly hard to meet the level of protein that I probably should be getting with just those sources, though. So I'm fortunate in that I do, or, depending upon which way you look at it, I do dairy. And so that's also an alternative source that I utilize to get my protein, because that's my primary concern is most, I can get all other nutritional values, but the protein is the one in which I really struggle with on a daily basis. So it's become a lot easier to do so. There's also the fortified cereals that add
Yep.
protein into them. There's now some fortified breakfasts, like Legendary Protein. I've been eating those lately. And again, it kind of goes back to is this actually healthier, or am I now pumping my body full of
Yeah.
nutrients that lack complete natural basis and giving me cancer? I don't know, but at this juncture, I guess it's better than being completely deficient of protein. I will also say I'm very fortunate because my husband, his family, they are actually Chinese immigrants. They immigrated over and they had a pretty successful Chinese restaurant growing up in Kansas City. We're in Kansas City now as well. And so he grew up in the restaurant business, wherein tofu is a pretty popular source of nutrition in China. And so he's very familiar and capable and makes well, he makes every dinner because I can't cook, but he really has an ability to give me alternative sources of protein through soy naturally, that a lot of other folks wouldn't have the wherewithal to understand what to do with it in its natural state.
Yeah. I wouldn't even have thought about that, but duh.
Yeah. 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 I mean, it's great. He'll make even just like silken tofu, and he'll
Yeah.
boil it and put like this Chinese sauce on it over rice. And it's a healthier version of than the processed foods that we typically buy from the freezers at Price Chopper, for sure.
Absolutely. Um, what kind of trends are you seeing when shopping for these alternative proteins? You talked about how like there wasn't anything what kind of when you first became a vegetarian, but there's obviously been a lot of new improvements. What trends have you been seeing within the last few years that you think will continue?
I really think too, particularly the last 5 years, even maybe 10, but it's particularly 5 years. If there is a type of meat that is created for an average meat eater, we are now starting to see the alternative in a plant-based version.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the 90s, again, it makes me feel so old, but back in the 90s, the cool era, there was nothing. I literally was eating peanut butter and chili beans for my protein sources. Like it was really difficult. And now, like I said, they have veggie corn dogs, they have regular, veggie hot dogs, they have veggie, all different kinds of veggie burgers that are like spicy black bean, regular, original, you name it, and pretty well you're going to see it in a grocery store now as an option. And it's it gives you variety and a better ability to mix it up than, the same thing every day. I would say it's really taken off. And I think part of that is probably, don't want to call it a fad, but there's definitely been an increased population. You guys probably know the numbers, but it definitely feels as though it's become more of like a social norm for someone to be a vegetarian, wherein back in my day it was not.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is very true. So as someone who does not eat meat or you eat alternative sources of protein, do you see anything that would make you change your mind, like new practices maybe?
No, I wish it, if it were a situation where a lot of people opt out for health reasons or for because they don't believe in how animals are being treated or things like that, then certainly, that would be the conversation I'm having with you. But for me, it's a psychological issue that I can't get past, that I've actually tried about 7 or 8 years ago. I was talking about my thought process of how I could live a healthier version of me if I could just eat chicken. Like if I could just eat chicken, I think I probably would be healthier, because I am, kind of one of the weirdos who's doing this it's self-inflicted vegetarianism, right? I'm choosing to do this. But yet I'm also concerned with the alternatives that I'm putting in my body and whether they're healthier. And so I had a conversation with my husband about 7 or 8 years ago, and I said, if I could just eat like chicken as a source of protein, I feel like I'd be so much healthier. And don't even talk to me about fish. I can't even come close to it. Sorry, but I just don't like it.
No, me either.
I can't do it. I never have been able to. And so we actually tried. I tried. I was like, okay, just grill it up in its most basic form, like put it on the table. I'm gonna do this. I can do this. If I'm stubborn enough to get myself into vegetarianism, surely I'm stubborn enough to get myself out of it. And I could not do it. I mean, it was so embarrassing. I started crying. I could not do it. And I think it's just a combination of, one, it's been so long. Two, I never really was a big meat eater to begin with. I love my carbs, unfortunately. And three, I just have an insane, irrational attachment to animals that my psyche will not allow me to do that. And again, like I said, I have zero concerns with everybody else in this world. Me, my children, my husband, all partake in the circle of life. I just can't get past it to allow myself to do it. And I wish I could. I wish I could, because I think I could be healthier. But I can't. And
But you are you.
like animal practices, I don't see that. I'm not someone who believes that that's a problem or a concern that needs rectifying. I'm sure there's it's compared to kind of like a puppy mill. I'm sure there's places out there that probably have unsafe or unhealthy ways in which they're growing their animals, but that's, you can't expect perfection in a huge industry that allows our country to keep moving forward.
What great insights. That was really nice. Yeah.
Yes, you brought great perspective.
Yes.
Probably
So,
your norm perspective, but
no, it's
quirky,
perfect.
quirky perspective that I wish I could change about me.
No, you're you, and it's what makes you you, and I love that.
Thanks. Oh
Yeah.
man, boy, did I get the ringer though growing up. Like, really thought I was
I
going to
can
be
only imagine.
confined to my room for the rest of my life. Oh, my dad was like a banker during the farm crisis. So like, he is like, farmers, we've got to support our farmers. And then I come along and he's like, what did I do wrong? Like, how did I go wrong here?
Some people just have that in them.
Yeah.
I could definitely see my sister being the same way, but yeah, it makes total sense. But that is all we have today. It has been a pleasure to have you on the podcast, sharing your perspectives and your insights into the world of eating alternative proteins and what that's looked like for you over the last few years, and navigating all of the new changes that has come within the industry. So we really appreciate you being on the podcast with us today.
I appreciate you guys having me.
So, our final guest that we have here with us today is Ellen. Welcome in, Ellen, and we appreciate you taking time out of your day to talk with us. So, could you tell us a little bit about your background?
Yeah, so I studied at Iowa State, and I graduated in 2021. I got a culinary food science. I studied culinary food science and then minored in sustainability. And then after graduation, I started working at Tofurky, the plant-based meat company, in their research and development department. And currently, I am working on my master's at Kansas State.
Very nice. So, our podcast is on alternative proteins, just different sources of proteins that people can eat. So, we were wondering, like from what you know, what is like the nutritional value in like other alternative proteins, like plant-based or lab-grown? What are the nutritional values in that?
So I have worked with plant-based meats, but I have a little bit of knowledge about cultivated meats or lab-grown meats, since it's kind of something new. It's something I've looked into in my free time. And ideally, the cultured meats, they want to have the same profile as their kind of traditional animal counterpart. However, the approval system that has happened has only gone through kind of in like the last 3 years. So I think it's kind of hard to comment fully on it now, since most of the access that people would have to it is through restaurants. And so I think it's going to be an interesting area of growth to see what happens, because I think that it is beneficial in ways for just kind of looking at how sustainability does impact our standard diet. For plant-based in comparison to animal products, the nutritional quality for protein can often be the same. So when you're looking at plant-based versus animal-based, people usually like to talk about how plant-based is not always a complete protein. However, there are complete protein sources within plant-based, like quinoa, seeds, legumes. They are great usage within plant-based. So a lot of people eat different beans and stuff, and usually they supplement beans with rice, and then that makes it a complete protein. And there's so many ways to get vitamins in a plant-based diet. So there's nutritional yeast, which contains all 9 essential amino acids. So I think people are often more nervous about a plant-based diet, when in actuality, most of the time, our usual diets do contain the amount of protein that we need. It is something that a plant-based eater would have to focus on, but it's not the most difficult thing to manage in a diet.
Yeah. That makes total sense. I like the input of kind of talking about the different vitamins and proteins that other sources of food can add to our diet without having to eat meat. It's very interesting and like almost very like trendy as of right now. Like there's a lot of people switching their diets. So it's nice to hear that those things are still out there and available for those people wanting to switch. And I feel like with that question, you also answered our next question of how it differs from animal-based proteins. I feel like you covered both of those in that one question. So have you ever tried any of the alternative proteins that are on the market? If you could share a little bit about that, and if you have or haven't. So yeah, if you could go ahead and explain that for me.
Yeah, so I have been a vegetarian since 2016, and so throughout that kind of life cycle of time, I've gotten to see and try a lot of different plant-based products. I think that the options that we're seeing now are a lot, I guess there's more options now than we have ever seen. And it's exciting to see the plant-based section increase in size. And I think that in a plant-based diet, it is easy to think that the alternative proteins are the only source, but there's a lot of traditional style products like tofu, tempeh that also can be supplemented in the diet and are a great addition within everyday eating. With animal products, I think that people are really nervous about textural differences and things like that, but oftentimes some of those differences do make the plant-based products better for us. So higher fiber content, it's better for our heart, and lower sodium levels usually, and overall it's often more benefits than negativities in my mindset.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I personally have never tried a plant-based product, but I am like kind of curious. Do they taste similar, or how, like, what's different in that aspect?
For sure, there is differences. However, within the last couple of years, the ingredients used within plant-based meats have really grown to be a lot more similar or a lot easier to work with to create those similarities that are desired within animal products and then transferred into plant-based products. I would say that right now there's a lot of discussion about, oh, it has to be an exact match. I don't think necessarily all plant-based consumers really want an exact match. And so it's interesting to have that conversation. I think it's more like preference style, like, if this is a flavor you want to add to your diet, or if this is a attribute you're missing in your diet, I think that's more important than making them as similar as possible.
Yeah,
That
that makes sense. So I'm also kind of curious and I know lab-grown proteins are very new, but do you think that they will be like very similar to real animal-based protein and like taste similar, have the same texture? How do you think that's gonna happen?
I mean, I think that there's a potential. They kind of started in actual like full research in like 2013, and so it's hard to say given how new the products are, because like plant-based meats have been around since like the 80s, so they definitely have had a little bit more time to grow. And so I think that, with lab-grown meats there is the potential, but again, I think the science is so new that there's a lot of area that needs to grow. And I don't 100% have a knowledge of like the flavors and things, that differences that could be seen there. One benefit of lab grown meats is most likely there'd be a reduction in foodborne illness issues, given that most of those issues are environmental. And so it's a lot more of a protected system.
Very interesting.
a nice take on things because it is a concern for a lot of consumers. And speaking of consumers, how do you believe that they can be more aware of new technologies in the industry, and how can they educate themselves on what is the best decision for them?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of great resources out there. I mean, companies, like even just looking on people's YouTube channels, there's often a lot of companies that are putting information out, whether it's like about their products or about the technologies they use. And I think that's a great like connection to the consumer, because it gives a way of, adding visual on top of just words, and like news articles and stuff, sometimes that can be scary because you're just looking at words on a page. And so kind of having some more of that interaction with the process is very interesting. And I love to go watch processing videos, like how it's made, things like that. And then as for like trying to educate themselves as a consumer, I think, extension resources are really great. I think that's one area within like general news sources and like information sources that is like lacked in usage. I think that people out of academics use it often, but I think that a general public consumer might not know about them. And so, there's a bunch of food innovation centers across the country, and there's even one. I live in Oregon right now, and there's one that's in Portland, and it's a great way to see kind of what's new and exciting because in education usually they get to see some of those stuff right up off the bat and get to help with some of that initial testing and things like that. And then as for plant-based versus cultivated meats versus fermentation products, stuff like that, a good source is I think it's called the Good Food Institute. That's a really great resource that I've enjoyed, and it opens a nice avenue for discussion about all these topics.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Ellen, it has been a pleasure to have you on with us today on Future Feasts and to share your perspective on alternative proteins and to add in kind of your opinions and knowledge within the area compared to our other guests that we've had on. And it's just been great to have you on for our guests.
As we wrap up today's discussion on alternative proteins, it's clear that this emerging trend is reshaping the way we think about food production and food consumption. We've heard a variety of perspectives on how alternative proteins are impacting traditional industries like cattle farming, as well as the opportunities and challenges that lie ahead. Whether you're a consumer, a farmer, or someone in between, it's important to stay informed as our food system continues to evolve.
Shay and I just want to give a huge thank you to our guests for sharing their insights and expertise on the topic. We hope this conversation has sparked new ideas and questions for you guys as listeners, and we encourage you to continue exploring how alternative proteins are shaping the future of our food systems. Thanks for listening to Future Feasts.
Thank you to Madeline and Shay and all of our guests for talking about alternative proteins today. I think alternative proteins are really interesting. I have a background in marketing, so I find all marketing fascinating. But the marketing with alternative proteins and what they choose to highlight on packages about different nutrient levels is something that I personally find interesting. I do like looking at alternative proteins at the store just to see what they look like and what new products are being put out. I think that they're fascinating. So I was really happy to listen to this episode to hear all of this wonderful information from our guests. And I hope you all learned something too. So with that, we will close out the podcast today, and we will see you again next time on the Cat Pod. To email us with any comments, questions, or concerns, please send us an email at contemporary@iastate.edu.